99X in the Morning X, Barnes, Leslie. We've got Dave Matthews tickets coming up, a pair of those. The last pair we have to get you into Ameris May 15th coming up. Our next guest, really interesting stuff with his book. It's called Uncharted Territory. Take a look at this.
I decided I was going to try to listen to every song to ever get to number one on the Billboard Hot 100. That's about 1,200 songs starting in August 1958 up to the present. And as I started going along listening, I started to collect information about these songs. I noticed some weird trends, and then I felt compelled to write about it, which eventually turned into my book, Uncharted Territory. Popular music is often a reflection, at some level, of things that are going on in society. Because I listen to every number one hit, people often ask me if I discovered some secret formula to writing a hit song, and I do promise if I discovered that, I would have just written the song instead of writing the book, because that would have been much quicker.
That is Chris Dalla Riva. His book, Uncharted Territory. Super interesting data about music. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Doing good. So interesting. What do you do for a living, by the way, that you're so into music?
Well, I actually work for a music streaming service called AudioMac. It's more like in the SoundCloud area. People could upload directly. It's very popular in Africa and the Caribbean, and I do data analytics for them. So I'm doing music and data stuff all day long.
I know you also play music. Does the fact that you're so engulfed in data, does that desensitize the actual process of playing music to you?
No, I don't think so. I mean, my initial interest in music is, as you noted, that I like to play. You know, I play in bands and stuff, and you're not thinking about numbers when you're picking up the guitar or you're singing a song. But sometimes I think about trends if I'm writing music or something, and you could go against a trend or you could write with a trend, and maybe that'll create something interesting.
Really excited, Chris, to actually read this book, Uncharted Territory. We've all been doing music, for years and radio, and we listen with different ears. But I wanted to ask you, how long did it take you to kind of blow through all these number one songs?
So I would only do one a day, and there are about 1,200. So it would take like
3 years,
somewhere between 3 and 4 years.
Wow.
But yeah, I like doing one. I mean, it took a while, but initially I didn't set out to write a book. It was just something I was doing. I'd pick up my guitar and play along and try to learn some stuff. So yeah, it was a lot of fun to do, and doing only one song a day, you really get to sit with the song and think about it.
I think as music people that listen to this show, a lot of people are just like die-hard music people, including us here. It's fascinating to read, like when you get into the data. We were talking the other day about how all these new pop songs have, 15, 17 people writing.
Right, yes.
And when, since you have all this data in your brain, at what point in the musical spectrum did that become a thing? Because it didn't used to be that way.
No, actually, I do write about this in the book, and they basically, for decades, if you look at most hit songs, they're written by 2 or 3 people, and that's when you think of your Elton John, Bernie Taupin, Rodgers and Hammerstein. I mean, going back like 100 years. But starting in the 90s, you see a surge in songwriters, and it grows over time, and there are a couple reasons. One of which is hip-hop became popular in the 90s, and hip-hop uses samples, and if you sample another song, you have to credit the writers on that other song. But I think an even bigger reason is that we started crediting things as songwriting that historically were not credited. Like now, if you make the beat on a song, you're going to get a songwriting credit, whereas back in the day, maybe you get a production credit, but songwriting was really just credited as lyrics, melody, and chords. So we seem to credit more things these days than we did decades ago. But the songwriting process is completely different than it was back in the 60s and 70s. In
what way?
So, back in the day, I think the idea of songwriting and production were more differentiated, meaning that, I don't know, Burt Bacharach would write a song and then it would get handed off to some producer to record. But now, since basically everybody owns recording software and it's so cheap, the idea of writing and recording, it's sort of become the same thing. Like you can have a half-finished recording rather than a half-finished song. And, since it's all digital, I mean, files can be sent around to people, and a lot of stuff is just created directly within the computer rather than on traditional instruments.
Changed so much, I know.
People leave themselves voice memos and stuff, and then it becomes a song.
You found out some really interesting things in your research about songs in different decades, especially like in the 50s, late 50s. Talk about some of the surprises that you discovered in this whole process.
Yeah, the thing that inspired me to start writing the book was I listened to about 50 or 60 number one hits, and the Hot 100, which is Billboard's pop chart, started in August 1958. And I noticed there were a lot of songs about people dying, which I thought was a very strange topic for pop songs. And, then I uncovered that this was a legitimate tradition of songs called teenage tragedy songs, which if you listen to older songs, you're probably familiar with stuff like this. It's like, two teenagers in love,
right.
There's a car crash, one of them dies. And that inspired me to start writing. I was like, why did this happen? This is very strange. And I wrote a little blurb about that, and it slowly snowballed into this larger book. But that was the beginning of it.
That's what's crazy is looking at different eras and also different cultures. Like, what would someone listening right now to 99X, which we play alt-rock music. I mean, we play stuff from the 90s, the 2000s, or now, or whatever. And other parts of the world are so different. When I travel and I'll stick radio on, it's super, rando. And depending on where you are, what's a micro trend maybe happening right now, like somewhere in the world, that the average American radio listener would be shocked to find out is, dominating the charts?
The biggest thing over probably the last decade is Latin music really crossing over into the U.S. Bad Bunny performing at the Super Bowl is probably the biggest example of that. But if you look at music charts around the world, I mean, you see Latin stars dominating a lot of them. And historically, that wasn't as much of a thing. Latin music was really sequestered off to Latin America, South America. And the biggest pop music exporters around the world were like the U.S. and the U.K. But now we're seeing, Puerto Rico and countries throughout South America who are exporting pop music around the world, which is pretty interesting.
The Grammys have their own Latin Grammys now. That's how huge it is, even if you look at our population in the U.S. One more question I wanted to ask is, how has TikTok affected all of this? Have you talked about this in your book?
Oh, yeah. I mean, TikTok's unavoidable when you're talking about music these days. TikTok has had, I think, a couple interesting effects. In one sense, it's like it has an effect the same way that MTV had an effect in the 80s.
I was just going to say that because of the images with the music.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And, in the same way that if you had a compelling music video, even if your song wasn't that good, you might have a hit. If you have a song that is going to make for a compelling TikTok trend
or a commercial,
you can have a hit. Yes, you can have a hit song without the song being that great by itself. Now, the interesting thing is that a music video lasted 3.5, 4 minutes. A TikTok trend might be 10 to 15 seconds. So we've definitely seen artists who write to have things perform well on TikTok and really focus on just having one or two moments in a song that are TikTokable. That doesn't always make for a great song because the song, lasts 2.5 to 4 minutes or whatever. But that's something I talk about in the book, throughout the book, is that no matter what decade you're in, you really do see artists writing to whatever formats their music is going to be heard in, whether that was, AM radio in the 60s. Like a lot of those Motown hits were written and mixed so they would sound good on AM radio. TikTok is the latest iteration of artists writing to a particular piece of technology.
I mean, TikTok is the new record company. I mean, that is the new... I mean, look at Benson Boone. What a great example of... But he did have a catchy song, but putting that whole thing together, and he had these great videos that were so quick, but had these great transitions, and that just catapulted him. And look at him now. He's selling out stadiums. It's pretty incredible.
It happened pretty quickly for him.
Dude, this is great stuff. Yeah. I cannot wait to read your book. If everyone... Can they find it on Amazon, obviously?
Yeah, it should be available online wherever you buy your books.
The book is called Uncharted Territory. That's the author right there, Chris Dalla Riva.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a ton of fun.
This isn't your average podcast.
This is one of the most, if not the most controversial podcasts.
This is Full Send.
Do you like party ever?
I think Post Malone told me once he went to like one of your parties.
What was the biggest after party you guys ever did?
We had one with you guys.
I know,
That
no.
was lit.
Unfiltered conversations.
I'm not going to say any names, but
We got Dr. Phil pulling up.
Jake Paul's coming in today.
Benjamin Netanyahu, he's about to walk into the podcast right now.
I feel like he'd leave.
Yeah, maybe.
The Full Send podcast.
This is so crazy.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.